The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus put another parable before the crowds, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the household came and said to him, 'Sir, do you not sow good seed in your field? How then has it weeds?' He said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' The servants said to him, 'Then do you want us to go and gather them?' But he said, 'No, lest in gathering the weeds you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather wheat into my barn.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Today we'll start with 3 volunteers. May I have 3 volunteers? There'll be simple questions. As usual, simple questions. 1 particularly from this group. Just anyone, someone courageous enough. And 2 from this side. Of any age, it doesn't matter. He's shaking his head. Come. Please. Okay, you can stay there. Thank you. Someone from there? No one? Yes, you can come. 1 more from this side. Yes, please, come. Come. I think we'll start from this side. Please come. Thank you. It's a simple question. If you were God, what would you want your world to be like? You created heaven and earth. What would you want that heaven and earth to be like?
Peaceful.
Just that?
Yeah. Happy.
Happy? Peaceful?
And prosperous.
Prosperous. Good. In your next life, if you are to be a marriage counselor, what would you tell?
My wife's not yet.
Oh, thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. If you're to be a marriage counselor in your next life, what would you tell the new families?
To learn how to accept.
To accept?
To grow their faith.
To grow their faith?
And try and live their own life. Choose their life.
Okay, thank you. Same question, young man. If you were God, what would your world look like?
To be peaceful and happy and forgiving.
And forgiving? That's all? Thank you. You're not married yet. We won't go there. If you were Father Joe Arimoso, what would you want St. George's to look like? Face this way. Louder, please.
I would want St. George's to look like a school that has equal opportunities for everyone and it's very inclusive.
That's all?
And to look a bit more like modern so that we fit into the new spaces that are a part of the world that we're going into.
This man had planned his answers before the question. Thank you. A round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. So we are looking at a description of earth family life, earth again, and then an institution. If you were listening, if you followed, there's something that was not mentioned. We are looking at happiness, peacefulness, inclusion, modern inclusion, that's the same thing, to fit in all spaces. What is missing in all this? The Creator does not want chaos on his earth. The two creators, they want peace. They don't want chaos. Probably if I ask them what would they do if there was chaos, probably they'll say, I'll shut him down and send the person to hell immediately. Would that be your answer? Exactly. Exactly. We are in a world where we prefer good. And so it is. Nobody wants anything bad. Nobody wants any weaknesses. Nobody wants to be looked at as having failed. We are in a world where we want to excel. It's actually a human need which needs to be satisfied. The institution, I'm sure the young Father Joe Arimoso would say, I don't want drugs in my school. Most schools, one of the laws that is automatic expulsion, it's when you are caught with drugs or smoking. At least the schools I've had experience with. These other things we might relate, no, let him go for counseling for 2 days. No, let him stay out of school for a month. When it comes to drugs, that's the ceiling. Go. At least we don't say go to hell, we just say go. Go to another place. But then we realize that the world is basically divided between good and bad, evil and righteousness. And when we create our own world, I'm sure all the parents in here, there is no single parent in here who will say, I wanted a stubborn child. Did you want a stubborn child? When they are babies, they are the best children, right? But when they start taking your shoes when you are away. What has happened? Who has changed them? That's not the child I gave birth to, but who did? Parents, who did? The other side, when we are enrolling students and we claim these are the best students, no, our selection this year is the best. No, these will excel. A week later, they are jumping over the windows. No, these are not the students I chose. Who did? You were there in admissions office. We don't start off looking for negatives. We start off looking for positives. In the Jesuit writings, there is what we call positive interpretation. It's not always easy. You look at Oderick, he comes drunk for Mass, and then you say, no, let's look at him positively. Really? Is that normal? We start off in life looking for something good within each and every person. And we intend to do good. Just a short story. One of my cousins is now late. When we were growing up, the breakable plates were just coming into fashion. So after eating, he wanted to help out. That was the intention. He collected 4 of them. He ran to the kitchen by the door. He fell down. They broke. He didn't give up. He came and collected more. And the same thing happened again. He was trying to help. He was trying to do good. But circumstances did not allow. At times because maybe he was clumsy or maybe mere accident. We are looking at a gospel where Christ sows good seed. Everything that God created is good. He created him, man and woman, and he said, this is good. Genesis. He did not say there some people have created. No. He said everything created is good. And then from nowhere in the pool of goodness, there are these weeds that have grown. What are some of the weeds we have? In our families, we have problem childs. There's a saying in my own language to say that in each family, there is a problem child. Whether you are 10 or 15, no matter how, despite having perfect parents, there will be one problem child. That's traditional beliefs. Is it true in practice? I see some heads shake, nodding. No matter how good a classroom is, there is a problem child in a classroom. Let's not go to teachers, right? We find there are weeds among us. Some weeds are due to experimentation, the young ones. They want to try A and B. If B fails, they'll still go to C. They won't jump to M. They'll continue the same process slowly so that they learn. At times, they end up in wrong hands. They end up with wrongdoings. Some weeds come in because of what we are exposed to. You might agree, some of you might agree with me that a good employee comes to your workplace, she or he is very good. But that good employee is perpetually a subject of discrimination. What do we expect? Revolt. What do we expect? Defense. What do we expect? Antagonism. Not because the person is bad, but the conditions they are exposed to. Similarly with our children, I'm not a parent, but comments always come to say, that child, it's the mother who spoiled him. Or when they are bad, they're always mother's children, right? And when they do well, they are father's children. Sometimes, especially the daughters will say, she's lazy because of the father. The conditions. You are raising up a very good child, but what are the conditions surrounding them? Are they helping to grow? Are they helping not to grow? Quite often, all we see is love. No, I love my child. He can't even wash his socks. You're sure you really love your child? I love my child. He's not supposed to pick up his plate after eating at table. Are you sure you love your child? Those are some of the small conditions that the enemy brings in. Who is the enemy? Anything that does not promote growth. Let's not talk about the devil. We give him too much power at times. Let's forget about the devil for now. But anything that does not promote growth, that is the enemy. As small as picking up a plate after someone has eaten. No, he's too young. I started cooking when I was, I think, about 7, 8. It was by accident, actually. My father went off, and my mother went to look for my father. And there was a pot of saza, we all know saza. In Zambia, we call it shima. There was a pot of saza boiling on the fire, and I kept waiting, and I was hungry. I look, Mom is not coming. 10 minutes, where has she gone? I knew what she's always done. I always sat by her cooking place. I put the meal I cooked, and it came out well. That was my first time of cooking, where I used to make these fatty foods for break at school, but that was for me only. But something that my father ate, that was the first time. I was frustrated and I was hungry. I cooked, did whatever she used to do, put in one plate, put on the table for my father, have a small piece and eat. My father ate, and for whatever reason he said, after eating, he said, I'll never eat the food you cook. It was just a conversation. But he didn't know that actually he had eaten it for the first time. Conditions. Conditions we go through at times make us be who we become. We are created good. The problem of division of good and bad, it's not that some people, some things are bad. But the problem comes in when we want to solve every problem. You have sinned, go to hell. Next, okay, you are still righteous, go to Creamy Inn and have an ice cream. We are dealing with a God who's patient. He said, let the weeds grow together with the good seed. Parents, how many of us would want to keep their children here, if you know that St. George's is a den of thieves? Everyone will whisk their children out. Within a second, we'll have empty halls in here. It's not easy to allow bad and good to coexist. I wouldn't if my child was at such a school. But God says, no, let them grow together. In this scenario of the gospel, there wasn't going to be any change. Weeds will remain weeds. But in a scenario of the human being, there is always room for change. I think the equation is good plus bad should lead to good. Good plus bad should lead to good. But what do we normally find? Good plus bad influence leads to bad. And that's the reason why you parents would whisk your children away from St. Ignatius. Not because the place is bad, but we are scared of the influence, the bad influence. But the expectation is that the good should influence the bad. Why is it difficult for good to influence the bad? It's simply because with the bad, we want immediate results. Well, not just the bad. Everybody wants immediate results. We don't want to wait in a queue when they are serving food. What do? You jump the queue. When there is too much traffic, you don't want to wait for your turn for the lights to come on. You want to squeeze in on the side and go. Those are small, small acts of disturbing peace, of disturbing love, of disturbing joy. I was driving from Belvedere on Thursday. I go on Thursdays. Well, I used a different route this time. I didn't use the same one I was attacked in. And this man just comes very close and goes right in front of me, and I started boiling. I said, I'll show him. Instinctively, the human person kicks in. I'll show him. When there was a small opening, I pressed the pedal, woo, woo, then I came back. Then at that point, I was like, so what have I gained from this? It felt good when I was overtaking him, but at the end of it all, I didn't gain anything. If anything, I burnt more fuel when I was trying to force the vehicle to go faster. I didn't gain anything. I was influenced. I allowed myself to be influenced and fell into the bait. But at the end of the day, there was nothing to gain. There are times when we want to do good or we are doing good, and whatever comes our way and disturbs the situation, what do? We don't know what to say, we don't know what to do, and that's when the second reading comes in. The Spirit speaks speaks for us. The time I woke up and said, what have I just done? The Spirit was prompting to say, hey, yes, we've overtaken. It felt nice. And the song was playing at its best when you overtaken. But now what end? It's at that point when the Spirit of God speaks to us. In the time of confusion, in the time at the end of temporal glory, at the end of temporal happiness, the Spirit kicks in to say, look at your life and pray to your God. And quite often, we always want to use our powers to judge, to use our powers to divide. But the first reading tells us that power of God is used to unite. Talks about forgiveness. God only uses his powers to forgive. Yes, someone might say the stories of the Old Testament, God was fighting, God was throwing people in the water in the Red Sea. Yes. Parents, I think they say there is also what they call tough love. You let the child swim so that they learn. That's not hurting your child. It's letting them learn. Tough love. And there are times when God does exactly that. Give us tough love so that we learn. Not all the time, there are times. But the world continues to have this opposition of good and bad. Not only from our own inclinations, some of them are natural disasters, but mainly because of our choices. And like God, we are asked to choose to give life, to choose growth, and not discourage growth. Anything that leads to growth, that is good. Anything hindering growth, that is the enemy sowing bad seed in the good school, in the good family, in the good personality, at a good working place. Today, what seed do you want to sow? What seed are you going to tolerate? In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.